Hi, everybody. This is Jimmy, and you're reading with Jimmy. This is Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms, chapters 16, 17, 18, and 19. 4 chapters. Buckle up. It's going to be a great read. We left off with Lieutenant Henry ending up in Milan's hospital, right? So that night, chapter 16, that night, a bat flew into the room through the open door that led onto the balcony and through which we watched the night over the roofs in town. Pronoun we? Who is that? Yes, Lieutenant Henry and Miss Barkley. It was dark in our room except for the small light of the night over the town, and the bat was not frightened, but he hunted in the room as though he had been outside. We lay and watched him, and I do not think that he saw us because we lay so still. And after he went out, we saw a searchlight come on and watched the beam move across the sky and then go off, and it was dark again. A breeze came in the night, and we heard the men of the anti-aircraft gun on the roof talking. It was cool, and they were putting on their capes. I worried in the night about someone coming up, but Catherine said they were all asleep. Once in the night, we went to sleep, and when I woke up, she was not there. But I heard her coming along the hall, and the door opened, and she came back to the bed and said it was all right, that she had been downstairs, and they were all asleep. She had been outside Miss Van Kampen's door and had heard her breathing in her sleep. She brought crackers, and we ate them and drank some vermouth. We were very hungry, but she said that they would all have to be gotten out of me in the morning. Don't forget what he's doing. He met Dr. Valentini, and Dr. Valentini is going to operate on him in the morning. Remember, he blew off those other 3 doctors? I went to sleep again in the morning when it was light, and when I was awake, I found that she was gone again. She came in looking fresh and lovely. She sat on the bed, and the sun rose, and I had a thermometer in my mouth, and we smelled the dew on the roofs, and then the coffee of the men at the guns on the next roof. I wish we could go for a walk, Catherine said. I would wheel you if I had a chair. How would I get into the chair? We would do it. We could go out in the park and have breakfast outdoors. I looked out the open doorway. Well, what we'll really have to do, she said, is get you ready for your friend, Dr. Valentini. I thought he was grand. I didn't like him much as you did, but I imagine he's very good. Come back to bed, Catherine, please, I said. What's he really asking? Come back to bed, Catherine, please. I can't, she said. Didn't we have a lovely night? And you can be on night duty tonight? I probably will, but you will not want me. Oh, yes, I will. No, you won't. You've never been operated on. You don't know how you'll be. I'll be all right. You'll be sick, and I won't be anything to you. Well, then come back now. No, she said. I have to do the chart, darling, and fix you up. You don't really love me, or you'd come back. You're such a silly boy. She kissed me. That's all for right now. That's all right for the chart. Your temperature is always normal. You've such a lovely temperature. You've got a lovely everything. Oh, no, you have a lovely temperature. I'm awfully proud of your temperature. Maybe our children will have fine temperatures, the narrator says. Our children will have probably beastly temperatures. What do you have to do to get me ready for Valentini? Not much, but it's quite unpleasant. I wish you didn't have to do it, I said. I don't. I don't want anyone else to touch you. I'm silly. I get furious if they touch you. Even Ferguson? Especially Ferguson and Gage and the other, what's her name? Walker? That's it. There's too many nurses here right now. There must be more patients or they'll send them away. They have 4 nurses now. Well, perhaps there'll be some. They need many nurses. It's quite a big hospital. I hope some will come, she said. What will you do if they send me away? They will unless there are more patients. Well, I would go too. Don't be silly. You can't go yet. But get well quickly, darling, and we'll go somewhere. And then what? I said. Well, maybe the war will be over. It can't always go on. I'll get well, I said. Valentini will fix me. He should with those mustaches. And darling, when you're going under the ether, just think about something else, not us. Because people get very babbly under the anesthetic. Well, what should I think about? I asked. Well, anything but us, she said. Think about your people, or even any other girl. No. Well, then say your prayers. That ought to create a splendid impression. Well, maybe I won't talk. And that's true. Often people don't talk, Barclay says. I won't talk. Don't brag, darling. Please don't brag. You're so sweet, and you don't have to brag. I won't talk a word. And now you're bragging, darling. You know you don't need to brag. Just start your prayers or poetry or something when they tell you to breathe deeply, and you'll be lovely that way. And I'll be so proud of you. I'm very proud of you anyway. You have such a lovely temperature. And you sleep like a little boy with your arm around the pillow, and you think it's me. Or is it some other girl, some fine Italian girl? It's you, I said. Of course it's me, she says. Oh, I do love you, and Valentini will make you a fine leg. I'm glad I don't have to watch it. And you'll be on night duty tonight? Yes, she says, but you won't care. You wait and see. There, darling. Now you're all clean inside and out. Tell me, how many people have you ever loved? Nobody. Not even me? Yes, you. Well, how many others, really? None. How many have you, how do you say it, stayed with? None. You're lying to me, she says. Yes. Well, it's all right. You keep lying to me. That's what I want you to do. Were they pretty? I never stayed with anyone, I said. That's right. Were they very attractive? I don't know anything about that. You're just mine, she says. That's true, and you've never belonged to anyone else, but I don't care if you have. I am not afraid of them. But don't tell me about them. When a man stays with a girl, when does she say, how much does it cost? I don't know. Of course not. Does she say she loves him? Tell me that. I really want to know that. Yes, I said, if he wants her to. Does he say that he loves her? Tell me, please. It's very important. Well, he does if he wants to. But you never did, really? Nope. Not really? Come on, tell me the truth. No, I lied. Notice the arrow here? So he's lying to her. You wouldn't, she said. I knew you wouldn't. Oh, I love you, darling. You see what's happening here, ladies and gentlemen? Make a note. Outside, the sun was up over the roofs, and I could see the points of the cathedral with the sunlight on them. I was clean inside and outside and waiting for the doctor. And that's it, Catherine said. She just says what he wants her to say. Not always, but I will. I will say what you wish, and I'll do what you wish, and then you will never want any other girls, will you? She looked at me very happily. I'll do what you want and say what you want, and then I'll be a great success, won't I? Yes, I said. Would you like me to do now that you're all, what would you like me to do now that you're all ready? Come to bed again, I said. All right, I'll come. Oh, darling, 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 I said. You see, she said, I do anything you want. You're so lovely, the narrator says. I'm afraid I'm not very good at it yet. it. You're lovely. I want what you want. There isn't any me anymore. Just what you want. You're sweet. I'm good, aren't I good? You don't want any other girls, do you? No. You see, I'm good. I do what you want. Before we go to 17, this is a very important scene. Very important to understanding the characters throughout the novel. This is very, very important. Okay? One of the most impressive lines Jimmy ever read is that I want what you want. There isn't any me anymore. There's just what you want. There's just you. There isn't any me. There's just what you want. Just you. No me, just you. Remember that. Okay? And remember what she's doing. She doesn't want to do this. She cleaned them up first, and now she's sleeping with him before the operation. Chapter 17. When I was awake after the operation, I had not been away. You don't go away. They only choke you. It was not like dying. It was not like dying. It is just a chemical choking, so you do not feel. And afterward, you might as well have been drunk, except that when you throw up, nothing comes up but bile, and you do not feel better afterward. I saw sandbags at the end of the bed. They were on pipes that came out of the cast. After a while, I saw Miss Gage, and she said, How is it now? Better, I said. He did a wonderful job on your knee, Gage says. How long did it take? 2.5 hours. Did I say anything silly? Not a thing. You don't talk. Just be quiet. I was sick. And Catherine was right. It didn't make any difference who was on night duty. There were 3 other patients in the hospital now, a thin boy in the Red Cross from Georgia with malaria, a nice boy who also thin from New York with malaria and jaundice, and a fine boy who had tried to unscrew the fuse cap from a combination shrapnel and high explosive shell for a souvenir. This was the shrapnel shell used by the Austrians in the mountains with a nose cap which went in after the burst and exploded on contact. Catherine Barclay was greatly liked by the nurses because she would do night duty indefinitely. She had quite a little work with the malaria people. The boy who had unscrewed the nose cap was a friend of ours and never rang at night unless it was necessary. But between the times of working, we were together. I loved her very much, and she loved me. I slept in the daytime, and we wrote notes during the day when we were awake, and she sent them by Ferguson. Ferguson was a fine girl. I never learned anything about her, except that she had a brother in the 52nd Division and a brother in Mesopotamia, and she was very good to Catherine Barclay. Will you come to our wedding, Fergie? I said to her once. You'll never get married. We will. No, you won't. Why not? I asked. You'll fight before you marry, Ferguson says. We never fight. You've time yet, Ferguson says. But we don't fight, the narrator says. Well, then you'll die. Fight or die. That's what people do. They don't marry. I reached for her hand. Don't take hold of me, she said. I'm not crying. Maybe you'll be all right, you two. But you watch out. You don't get her in trouble. You get her in trouble and I'll kill you. I won't get her in trouble. Well, watch out then. I hope you'll be all right. You have a good time. We have a fine time. Don't fight then. And don't get her in trouble. I won't. Well, mind you watch out. I don't want her with any of these war babies. You're a fine girl, Fergie. I am not, and don't try to flatter me. How does your leg feel? Fine. How's your head? She touched the top of it with her fingers. It was sensitive like a foot that had gone to sleep. It's never bothered me, I said. A bump like that could make you crazy. It never bothers you? Nope. You're a lucky man, Ferguson says. Have you the letter done? I'm going down. It's here, I said. You know, you ought to ask her not to do night duty for a while. She's getting very tired. All right, I will, I said. I want to do it, but she won't let me. The others are glad to let her have it. You might give her just a little rest. Remember this, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Miss Van Campen spoke about you sleeping all afternoons. She would. It would be better if you let her stay off nights for a while. I want her to. You do not. But if you would make her, I would respect you for it. I'll make her, I said. I don't believe it. She took the note and went out. I rang the bell, and in a little while, Miss Gage came in. What's the matter? I just wanted to talk to you, I said. Do you think Miss Barkley ought to go off night duty for a while? She looks awfully tired. Why does she stay on so long? Miss Gage looked at me. I'm a friend of yours, she said. You don't have to talk to me like that. What do you mean? I asked. Don't be silly. Was that all you wanted? Do you want a vermouth? I asked. All right, she said. Then I'll have to go. She got out the bottle from the armoire and brought a glass. You take the glass, I said. I'll drink out of the bottle. Here's to you, said Miss Gage. What did Van Campen say about me sleeping late in the mornings? I asked. She just jawed about it. She calls you our privileged patient. To hell with her, I said. She isn't mean, Miss Gage says. She's just old and cranky. She never liked you. No. Well, I do, and I'm your friend. Don't forget that. You're awfully damn nice. No, I know who you think is nice, but I'm your friend. How does your leg feel? Fine. I'll bring some cold mineral water to pour over it. It must itch under that cast. It's very hot outside. You're awfully nice. Does it itch much? No, it's fine. I'll fix those sandbags better. She leaned over. I'm your friend. I know you are, I said. No, you don't. But you will someday. Catherine Barkley took 3 nights off night duty, and then she came back on again. It was as though we had met again after each of us had been away on a long journey. Are you learning anything about the narrator? Chapter 18. And you understand what I'm doing here is that these are titles Jimmy's giving to these chapters, right? Jimmy gives these titles to the chapters. Okay. Chapter 18. We had a lovely time that summer. When I could go out, we rode in a carriage in the park. And I remember the carriage, the horse going slowly and up ahead, the back of the driver with his varnished high hat, and Catherine Barkley sitting beside me. If we let our hands touch, just the side of my hand touching hers, we were excited. Afterward, when I could get around on crutches, we went to dinner at Biffy's or the Grand Italia and sat at the tables outside on the floor of the Galleria. The waiters came in and out, and there were people going by and candles with shades on the tablecloths, and afterwards we decided that we liked the Grand Italia better. George, the head waiter, saved us a table. He was a fine waiter, and we let him order the meal while we looked at the people and then the great Galleria in the dusk and at each other. We drank dry white Capri, iced in the bucket, and although we tried many of the other wines, Fresca, Barbera, and the sweet white wines, they had no wine waiter because of the war, and George would smile ashamedly when I asked about the wines like Frezza. If you imagine a country that makes a wine because it tastes like strawberries, he said. Well, why shouldn't I? Catherine asked. It sounds splendid. Well, you try it, lady, said George, and if you want to, but you let me bring you a bottle of Margaux for the Tenente. I'll try it too, George. Sir, I can't recommend you to. It doesn't even taste like strawberries. It might, said Catherine. It would be wonderful if it did. Bring it, said George. And when the lady is satisfied, I'll take it away. It was not much of a wine. As he said, it didn't even taste like strawberries. We went back to Capri. And one evening, I was short of money and George loaned me 100 lire. That's all right, Tenente, he said. I know how it is. I know how a man gets short. If you or the lady need money, I've always got money. After dinner, we walked through the Galleria, past the other restaurants and the shops with the steel shutters down, and stopped at the little place where they sold sandwiches, ham and lettuce sandwiches and anchovy sandwiches, made of a lot of tiny brown glazed rolls, and the only about as long as your finger. They were to eat in the night when we were hungry. Then we got in an open carriage outside the Galleria in front of the cathedral and rode to the hospital. And at the door of the hospital, the porter came out to help me with the crutches. I paid the driver, and then we rode upstairs in the elevator. Catherine got off the lower floor where the nurses lived, and I went up and went down the hall on crutches to my room. Sometimes I undressed and got into bed, and sometimes I sat out on the balcony with my leg up on another chair, and I watched the swallows over the roofs, and I waited for Catherine. And when she came upstairs, it was as though she had been away on a long trip. And I went along the hall with her on the crutches and carried the basins and waited outside the door, or I waited in with her, it depending on whether they were friends of ours or not. And when she had done all that there was to be done, we sat out on our balcony outside my room. Afterward, we went to bed, and when they were all asleep and she was sure they would not call, she came in. I loved to take her hair down, and she sat on the bed and kept very still, except suddenly she would dip down and kiss me as I was doing it. And I would take out the pins and lay them on the sheet, and it would be loose. And I would watch her while she kept very still, and then take out the last 2 pins, and it would all come down. And she would drop her head, and we would both be inside of it. And it was feeling of being inside a tent or behind the falls. She had wonderfully beautiful hair. And I would lie sometimes and watch her, twisting it up in the light that came in the open door. And it shone, even in the night, as water shines sometimes, just before it is really daylight. She had a lovely face and a body, and lovely smooth skin, too. We would be lying together, and I would touch her cheeks and her forehead and her eyes and her chin and throat with the tips of my fingers and say, "Smooth as piano keys." And she would stroke my chin with her finger and say, "Smooth as emery paper," and very hard on piano keys. "Is it rough?" I asked. "No, darling, I was just making fun of you." It was lovely in the nights, and if we could only touch each other, we were happy. Besides, all the big times, we had many small ways of making love, and we tried putting thoughts in the other one's head while we were in different rooms. It seemed to work sometimes. But that was probably because we were thinking the same thing anyway. We said to each other that we were married the first day that she had come to the hospital. And so we counted the months from our wedding day. I wanted to really be married, but Catherine said that if we were, they would send her away. And if we were merely started on the formalities, they would watch her and we would break us up. We would have to be married under Italian law, and the formalities were terrific. I wanted us to be married, really, because I worried about having a child if I thought about it. But we pretended to ourselves we were married, and it didn't worry much. And I suppose I enjoyed not really being married, really. Make a note. I know one night we talked about it, and Catherine said, "But darling, they'll send me away." "Maybe they wouldn't," I said. "Well, they would. They'd send me home, and then we would be apart until after the war." "Well, I'd come on leave," I said. "You couldn't get to Scotland and back on leave. Besides, I won't leave you. What good would it do to marry now? We're really married. I couldn't be more married. I only wanted to for you. There isn't any me. I'm you. Don't make up a separate me." Note, very important. There isn't any me. I'm you. Don't make up a separate me. He says, I thought girls always wanted to be married. They do, but darling, I am married. I'm married to you. Don't I make you a good wife? You're a lovely wife, I said. You see, darling, I had one experience of waiting to be married. You know what she's referring to, right? Her former fiance who was blowing up in the soul. I don't want to hear about it, I said. You know I don't love anyone but you. You shouldn't mind because someone else loved me. But I do, I said. You shouldn't be jealous of someone who's dead when you have everything. No, I said, but I don't want to hear about it. Poor darling, she says. And I know you've been with all kinds of girls, and it doesn't matter to me. Couldn't we be married privately some way, I asked? Then if anything happened to me, or if you had a child, there's no way to be married except by church or state, she says. We are married privately. You see, darling, it would mean everything to me if I had any religion, but I haven't any religion. But you gave me a St. Anthony. Well, that was for luck. Someone gave it to me. Well, then nothing worries you, I asked. Only being sent away from you. You are my religion. Oh, my God. What a line. You're all I've got. All right, I said, but I'll marry you the day you say. Don't talk as though you had to make an honest woman of me, darling. I'm a very honest woman. You can't be ashamed of something if you're only happy and proud of it. Aren't you happy? But you won't ever leave me for someone else? No, darling. I won't leave you for someone else. I suppose all sorts of dreadful things will happen to us, but you don't have to worry about that. I don't, I said, but I love you so much, and you do. And if you did love someone else before, and what happened to him, she says. Well, he died. Yes, and if he hadn't, I wouldn't have met you. I am not unfaithful, darling. I have plenty of faults, but I'm very faithful. You'll be sick of me, I'm so faithful. Well, I'll have to go back to the front pretty soon. Well, we won't think about that until you go. You see, I'm happy, darling, and we have a lovely time. I haven't been happy for so long of a time that when I met you, perhaps I was nearly crazy. Maybe I was crazy. But now we're happy and we love each other. Do let's please just be happy. You are happy, aren't you? Is there anything that I do that you don't like? Can I do anything to please you? Would you like me to take down my hair? Do you want to play? Yes, I said, come to bed. All right, I'll go and see the patients first. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important chapter. I want you to remember it. Remember this part here. She says she has no religion, but da-da-da-da-da-da. We know about her past. She certainly, if someone says that you are my religion, there is no me, there's only you, that's pretty well the definition of love that Jimmy would say. So just remember that. Chapter 19. Life in Milan. That's Jimmy's title. Chapter 19. The summer went that way. I don't remember much about the days except that they were hot. And there were many victories in the papers. I was very healthy and my legs healed quickly. So that it wasn't long afterward that I was the first on crutches, and then I was through with them. And then I was walking with a cane. And then I started treatments at the Ospedale Maggiore for bending the knees, mechanical treatments, baking in a box of mirrors with violet rays, massage, baths. I went over there afternoons, and afterward I would stop at the cafe and had a drink and read the papers. I didn't roam around the town, but I wanted to get home to the hospital from the cafe. All I wanted was to see Catherine. The rest of the time I was glad to kill. Mostly I slept in the mornings, and in the afternoons sometimes I went to the races, and late to the mechanical therapy treatments, Sometimes I would stop at the Anglo-American Club, and I sat in a deep leather cushioned chair in front of the window and I read the magazines. They would not let us go out together when I was off the crutches because it was unseemly for a nurse to be seen unchaperoned with a patient who did not look as though he needed attendance. So we were not together much in the afternoons, although sometimes we could go out to dinner if Ferguson went along. Miss Van Campen had accepted the status that we were great friends because she got a great amount of work out of Catherine. She thought Catherine came from a very good people, and that prejudiced her in her favor, finally. Miss Van Campen admired family very much and came from an excellent family herself. The hospital was quite busy, too, and that kept her occupied. It was a hot summer, and I knew many people in Milan, but always was anxious to get back home to the hospital as soon as the afternoon was over. At the front, they were advancing on Carso, and they had taken Cook across from Plava, and they were taking Banzina Plateau. The West Front didn't sound so good. It looked as though the war were going on for a long time. We were in the war now, but I thought it would take about a year to get any good amount of troops over and to train them for combat. Next year would be a bad year, or a good year maybe. The Italians were using an awful amount of men. I did not see how it could go on. Even if they took all of the Banzini and Mount San Gabriel, where there were plenty of mountains beyond the Austrians. I had seen them. All the highest mountains were beyond. And on the Carso, they were going forward, but there were marshes and swamps down by the sea. Napoleon would have whipped the Austrians on the plains. He never would have fought them in the mountains. He would have let them come down, and then he would have whipped them around Verona. Still, nobody was whipping anyone on the Western Front. Perhaps wars weren't won anymore. Maybe they went on forever. Maybe it was another 100 Years' War. That's an illusion, ladies and gentlemen. Look it up, the 100 Years' War, France and England. I put the paper back on the rack and left the club. I went down the steps carefully, and then I walked up the Via Manzoni. Outside the Grand Hotel, I met old Myers and his wife. These are new characters. Getting out of a carriage. They were coming back from the races. She was a big busted woman in black satin. He was short and old with a white mustache and walked flat-footed with a cane. "How do you do? How do you do?" She shook hands. "Hello," said Myers. "How were the races?" I said. "Fine. They were just lovely. I had 3 winners." "How did you do?" I asked Myers. "All right, I had a winner." "I never know how he does," Mrs. Myers said. "He never tells me." "I do all right," Myers said. He was being cordial. "You ought to come out." While we talked, you had the impression that he was not looking at you or that he mistook you for someone else. "I will," I said. "I'm coming up to the hospital to see you," Mrs. Myers said. "I have some things for my boys." "You're all my boys. You certainly are my dear boys." "They'll be glad to see you," I said. "Those dear boys." "You too. You're one of my boys." "I'll have to get back," I said. You give my love to all those dear boys. I've got a lot of things to bring. I've got some very fine Marsala and cakes." "Goodbye," I said. "They'll be awfully glad to see you." "Goodbye," said Myers. "You come around to the Galleria? You know where my table is. We're all there every afternoon." Contrast what he's saying, what's going on here, with the war. Think about it. Okay, I went up the street. I wanted to buy something at the Cova to take to Catherine. Inside the Cova, I bought a box of chocolate and a couple of British and some aviators. While the girl wrapped it up, I walked over to the bar. There were a couple of British and some aviators, and I had a martini alone, paid for it, picked up the box of chocolate at the outside of the counter, and walked home on toward the hospital. I want you to notice the detail that he's telling us this with, right? Remember, he's a narrator, right? And he's painting a picture, and he's very precise. He had a martini. He doesn't have to tell us that, but he tells us that. Outside the little bar up the street from the Scala, there were some people that I knew. A vice consul, two fellows who studied singing, and a Torre Moretti. These are new characters, ladies and gentlemen. Pay attention. Ettore Moretti was an Italian from San Francisco who was in the Italian army. I had a drink with them. One of the singers was named Ralph Simmons, and he was singing under the name of Enrico del Credo. I never knew how well he could sing, but he was always on the point of something very big happening. He was fat. Don't forget the word. Don't forget the word. And looked shop-worn around the nose and mouth, as though he had had hay fever. He had come back from singing at the Piacenza. He had sung Tosca, and it had been wonderful. Now, he's saying this because obviously Ralph Simmons tells us that. Of course, you've never heard me sing, Simmons says. When will you sing? When will you sing here? I said. Well, I'll be at the Scala in the fall. I'll bet that they throw benches at you, Ettore said. Did you hear how they threw benches at him at the Modena? That's a damned lie. They threw benches at him, Ettore said. I was there. I threw 6 benches myself. You're just a wad from Frisco. He can't pronounce Italian, Ettore said. Wherever he goes, they throw benches at him. Vincenzo's the toughest house to sing in northern Italy, the other tenor said. We're about to meet him, so there's 2 tenors, right? Believe me, that's a tough little house to sing. And this tenor's name was Edgar Saunders, and he sang under the name of Eduardo Giovanni. I want to do a sidebar, but I want to wait. I'd like to be there to see them throw benches at you, Ettore said. You can't sing Italian. He's a nut, said Edgar Saunders. All he knows how to say is throw benches. Well, that's all they know how to do when you two sing, Ettore said. And then when you go to America, they're going to tell you, you're going to go to America and you're going to talk about your triumphs at the Scala. They wouldn't let you get the first note at the Scala. I'm going to sing at the Scala, Simmons said. I'm going to sing Tosca in October. We'll go, won't we, Mac? Ettore said to the vice consul. They'll need someone to protect them. Maybe the American army will be there to protect them, the vice consul said. You want another drink, Simmons? You want a drink, Saunders? All right, said Saunders. I hear you're going to get the silver medal, Ettore said to me. Well, what kind of citation you going to get? I don't know, I said. I don't know I'm going to get it. Oh, you're going to get it. Oh, boy, the girls at the Cova will think you're fine then. They'll think that you killed 200 Austrians or captured a whole trench by yourself. Believe me, I got to work for my decorations. How many have you got, Ettore? Said the vice consul. He's got everything, Simmons said. He's the boy that they're running the war for. I got a bronze twice and 3 silver medals, said Ettore. But the papers will only, but the papers on only one that have come through. So he's got 2, 3, 5, but the papers on one, only one came through. What's the matter with the others, Simmons says. The action wasn't successful, Ettore said. When the action isn't successful, they hold up all the medals. How many times have you been wounded, Ettore? 3 times bad. I got 3 wound stripes, see? And he pulled back his sleeve around. The stripes were parallel silver lines on a black background sewed to the cloth of the sleeve, about 8 inches below the shoulder. You've got one too, Ettore said to me. Believe me, they're fine to have. I'd rather have them than the medals. Believe me, boy, when you get 3 of something, you only got to get 1 for a wound that puts you in 3 months in the hospital. Where were you wounded, Ettore? Asked the vice consul. Ettore pulled up his sleeve. Here, he showed a deep, smooth red scar. Here, on my leg. I can't show you that because I got puttees on. And in the foot. There's a dead bone in my foot that stinks right now. Every morning I take new little pieces out and it stinks all the time. Well, what hit you? Asked Simmons. A hand grenade, he said. One of those potato mashers. It just blew the whole side of my foot off. You know those potato mashers? He turned to me. Sure, I said. Yeah, I saw the son of a bitch throw it, Tori said. It knocked me down and I thought I was dead all right. But those damn potato mashers, they haven't got anything in them, so I shot the son of a bitch with my rifle. I always carry a rifle so they don't tell that I'm an officer. Well, how did he look? Asked Simmons. Well, that's the only one. That was the only one he had, Tori said. I don't know why he threw it. I guess he always wanted to throw one. He never saw any real fighting, probably. I shot the son of a bitch. All right. Well, how did he look when you shot him? Simmons asked. Well, how the hell should I know? Said Tori. I shot him in the belly. I was afraid I would miss him, so if I shot him in the head. How long have you been an officer, Tori? I asked. 2 years. I'm going to be a captain. How long have you been a lieutenant? Going on 3 years, I said. Well, you can't be a captain because you don't know the Italian language well enough, Tori said. You can talk, but you can't read and write well enough. You got to have an education to be a captain. Why don't you go into the American Army? Well, maybe I will, I said. I wish to God I could. Oh, boy, how much does a captain get, Mac? I don't know exactly, around $250, I think. Jesus Christ, what I could do with $250. You better get into the American Army quick, Fred. See if you can get me in. All right, I said. I can command the company in Italian. I could learn it in English, easy. Simmons says, you'd be a general. Nah, I don't know enough to be a general. A general's got to know a hell of a lot. You guys think there ain't anything to war, and you ain't got brains enough to be a second-class corporal. Thank God I don't have to be, Simmons said. Well, maybe you will if they round you up as slackers. Oh, boy, I'd like to have you two in my platoon. Mac, too. I'd make you my orderly, Mac. You're a great boy, Tori, Mac said. But I'm afraid you're a militarist. I would be a colonel before the war is over, Tori said. If they don't kill you. They won't kill me. He touched the stars on his collar with his thumb and forefinger. See me do that? See me do that? We always touch our stars if anyone mentions getting killed. Let's go, Sim, Saunders said, standing up. All right. So long, I said. I've got to go, too. It was 5:45 by the clock inside the bar. Ciao, Tori. Ciao, Fred, said Tori. That's pretty fine. You're going to get a silver medal. I don't know that I'll get it, I said. You'll get it all right, Fred. I heard that you were going to get it all right. Well, so long, I said. Keep out of trouble, Tori. Don't worry about me. I don't drink, and I don't run around. I'm no boozer and whorehound. I know what's good for me. So long, I said. I'm glad you're going to be promoted captain. I don't have to wait to be promoted. I'm going to be a captain for merit of war, 3 stars, and with the crossed swords and the crown above. That's me. Good luck. Good luck. When you going back to the front? Pretty soon. Well, then I'll see you around. So long, so long. Don't take any bad nickels. I walked down the back street that led to the crosscut to the hospital, and Tori was 23. He had been brought up by an uncle in San Francisco, and he was visiting his father and mother in Torino when the war was declared. He had a sister who had been sent to America with him at the same time to live with the uncle, who would graduate from normal school this year. He was a legitimate hero who bored everyone he met. Catherine couldn't stand him. We have heroes too, she said, but usually, darling, they're much quieter. I don't mind him, I said. I wouldn't mind him if he wasn't so conceited and didn't bore me, and bore me, and bore me. He bores me, I said. You're sweet to say so, darling, but you don't need to. You can picture him at the front. And he's useful, but he's so much type of a boy that I don't care for. I know, I said. You're always sweet to know, and I'll try and like him, but he's a dreadful, dreadful boy, really. He said this afternoon that he was going to be a captain, I said. I'm glad, said Catherine. That should please him. Wouldn't you like me to have some more exalted rank? Oh, no, darling, she says. I only want you to have the rank so that we're admitted to the better restaurants. That's just the rank I have, I said. You have a splendid rank. I don't want you to have any more rank. It might go to your head. Oh, darling, I'm awfully glad you're not conceited. I'd have married you even if you were conceited, but it's very restful to have a husband who is not conceited. We're always talking softly on the balcony. The moon was supposed to rise, but there was a mist over the town, and it didn't come up, and in a little while it started to drizzle, we came in. Note drizzle. Outside, the mist turned to rain. Note the rain. Remember the rain. And in a little while, it was raining hard, and we heard drumming on the roof. And I got up and stood at the door to see if it was raining in, but it wasn't, so I left the door open. Who else did you see? Catherine asked. Mr. and Mrs. Myers, I said. They're a strange lot. Well, he's supposed to have been in the penitentiary at home, and they let him out to die. And he lived happily in Milan forever after? I don't know how happily. Happily enough after jail, I should think, she said. She's bringing some things here. She brings splendid things, Catherine said. Were you her dear boy? I was one of them. You're all her dear boys, Catherine said. She prefers the dear boys. Listen to the rain. It's raining hard. And you'll always love me, won't you? Yes. And the rain won't make any difference? No. Well, that's good. Because I'm afraid of the rain. Let's pause a moment. Catherine says this. Who says it's raining hard? He, she, he, she, he, she. I'm afraid of the rain. Why? I was sleepy. Outside, the rain was falling steadily. I don't know, darling, she said. I've always been afraid of the rain. That's why you want to note the rain. I like it, I said. I like to walk in it, but it's very hard on loving. I'll love you always, I said. I love you in the rain and in the snow and in the hail, and what else is there? I don't know. I guess I'm sleepy, he says, the narrator. Go to sleep, darling, and I'll love you no matter how it is. You're not really afraid of the rain, are you? No, not when I'm with you. Why are you afraid of it? I don't know. Tell me. Don't make me. Tell me. No, tell me. All right. I'm afraid of the rain because sometimes I see me dead in the rain, in it. No. And sometimes I see you dead in it. Well, that's more likely, I said. No, it's not, darling, because I can keep you safe. I know I can. But nobody else can help themselves. Stop it, I said. I don't want you to get Scotch and crazy tonight. We won't be together much longer. No, but I am Scotch and I am crazy, but I'll stop it. It's all nonsense anyway. Yes, it is nonsense. It's all nonsense. It's only nonsense. I'm not afraid of the rain. Okay? I'm not afraid of the rain. Oh, God, I wish I wasn't. She was crying. I comforted her and she stopped crying. But outside, it kept on raining. Powerful, powerful, powerful dialogue. I want to back up 1 second before we leave and talk about these characters that have the aliases. Okay, the aliases, where are they? Edgar Saunders singing as Eduardo Giovanni and Ralph Simmons singing as Enrico D'Arcano. I had a client that was in the furniture business, and if you know anything about furniture, it's a rough and tumble world, especially if you read the history of furniture in America. And one of our clients who was in the furniture business created a line of furniture. And he said, when we were talking about what, they were trying to brand the name of the furniture, he said, the best way to brand furniture is to just take two first names. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, you just take two first names. like Edgar Ralph, the Ralph Edgar. I'm taking the names from these characters. The Ralph Edgar collection. and, and they actually branded this line of furniture. And they didn't manufacture the furniture. They were buying the furniture from a big, big, big distributor of furniture who actually made the furniture someplace. And the same line was bought by other people, but they named it some with two first names. Like I don't want to tell you the names because then you'll Google it and you'll figure it out. But it was, let's call it the Ralph Edgar collection. And it was a great success. Anyway, that's a sidebar. You should be appreciating the language in these chapters. You should appreciate the contrast to the war that's going on. You should understand now the symbol of the rain. Catherine's scared of it. She sees herself or him dead in it. This is foreshadowing, again, foreshadowing. So when you see it raining, and it rained before, you can go back and look at when it was raining. Bad stuff happened. So when you see the rain in this book, you know something bad is going to happen. You've been reading with Jimmy. We read 4 chapters in book 2 of A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. I want to go back real fast and remember the chapters. I got so excited I forgot the chapters. 16, 17, 18, and 19 of book 2, right? That's where we're in, book 2. Learn more by reading more of this novel with Jimmy. And remember, if you have questions, Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com, Jimmy@readingwithjimmy.com. Think about Catherine and Lieutenant Henry, the word love, the rain, the symbol of rain, etc., etc. Okay? Thank you so much. See you soon, and please stay safe.